And it clicks yellow there. And
we should be live.
Yeah, I know. I'm just being yellow there. I echoed. Some strange reason. Sniffles. Sniffles, sniffles, sniffles. Well, according to this, there's me. So I will just type a message. Oh well. Oh well is better than all well, or Orwellian anyway. Obviously, it's a riveting subject of the title that has captured the imagination of everybody and brought them here in droves. Which obviously makes a mess of the road. Oh, we have a third. It says 3 watching. We have someone lurking. Hello, lurker. As you can see, I am visible today, and wearing a shirt thanks to Modwayne, who thought, you lovely people out there do not deserve the shock and horror of me sans shirt or my own. Hello, Chief Moody. It's been a while. Well, I nearly called you Chef Moody for some strange reason. Some inability to remember my native tongue. Ah, bloody nose. I have blackmailed Modwayne tonight into lending me his channel, given that he normally streams on this night, often with my assistance, and he's not quite up to it today and deserves a rest. Yes, and so I prepared a little something as part of my evil plan for world domination, which is a treatise I have. Well, it's the start of a treatise. I'm much too long-winded to do anything in one short go on logic versus reasoning, and I will prattle on for a little while in the vain hope that others will join us here tonight. And then I will launch into this and await everyone's mockery or other suitable responses. Now, Mr. St. Clair, his reactions will be very interesting, and I'm sure quite scathing, but that's fine. I am prepared to be attacked. Stupid notes. Okay. St. Clair, I don't know if you heard. I was just saying that Modwayne has very foolishly handed me the reins tonight, and I will be reading a little thing I wrote on logic versus reasoning and its relevance to my master plan of world domination. I am just waiting a little bit and rambling nonsensically for other people to come into the chat. Once I finish, because I thought it'd be best to read it uninterrupted, then people will be welcome to come on perhaps and give their verdict. And I set no limits whatsoever on the tenor of such verdicts. It is entirely for people to react as they wish, being the nature of this stream. We do not censor unless you are bigoted. We don't like that. We don't like bigots or even littlers and other bad jokes. I'm good at bad jokes, by the way, as befits a man of my age. I was discussing recently the necessity of creating a new ideology. When I say new ideology, it is not intended to contain any particularly new thought. It is intended to be framed in a way that will operate as an ideology based upon Enlightenment thinking, given that most Enlightenment thinking is not particularly amenable for use as an ideology, it being far too reasoned and logical and etc. And as part of this idea of mine, and something I have noticed for a long time, is the fact that we get a lot of discourse that applies reasoning that gets mistakenly referred to as logic, but isn't logic, or not valuable logic. If it's a man of my own age, well, who else's age have I got? Good morning, Ludicrous. We are just waiting for the stragglers. And anyone who falls in here so we can trap them and things like that. The stragglers, yeah, people who aren't here early. Okay. Stragglers, not stranglers. I saw the Stranglers in 1980, just when they changed from a punk band to whatever they became when they did things like Golden Brown. Oh, they were awful. It was such a disappointment. They were second on the bill to The Who at Wembley Stadium. The Who were good then. Sadly, it was after Keith Moon's death, so it wasn't old Keith Moon on the drums, but otherwise the original lineup was present. Pete Townsend did lots of cartwheeling with his arm while playing the guitar. And they did all the standards, which was very good. And I had a very nice gallon container, I guess, of cider, which was what was being sold, which made the day most enjoyable. Okay. Well, we have a tiny audience. Let us begin. So I'm going to read my paper to both of you and Modwayne, and then I'm going to let people respond if they wish. My name is Anak. This is my theory. It is mine and mine alone. Okay. I guess I should imitate Michael Palin, as he's the one from the same place as I live, not the southwestern John Cleese, but never mind. And okay, logic versus reasoning. Introduction. You may be familiar with the quote, "Some ideas are so stupid that only intellectuals believe them." This has been attributed to George Orwell, and though such attributions are easy to find, I could not find the source of the quote, and thus actual attribution was much harder. Even so, it is a very potent quote for one simple reason. It resonates with us so strongly, as seems to have been the case for up to a century. depending upon whether Orwell actually said it, and if so, when. There is a reason why the phenomenon happens. Reality is insanely complex. We divide our intellectual pursuits into a plethora of fields, subfields, subjects, subsubjects, and so on. Intellectual effort tends to go deep, making it specialized. Yet many significant breakthroughs come not in the search for detailed understanding, but through the act of synthesis, taking existing academic works and divining new understanding by looking in a new way at what is being revealed, one that unites a detailed research of separate areas of study. A classic example of this was Richard Dawkins' 1976 book, The Selfish Gene. It was based heavily on the work of others, but presented a new insight that revolutionized the field of genetics. At the end of the book, he also coined the term meme, a word now widely used, though perhaps rarely understood, at least in the sense in which it was originally meant. I too am interested in synthesis. The question is not whether we need experts. We do. But the problem of expertise is that the deeper a person's knowledge, the narrower their domain of understanding, as a rule. Now, if the academic process is robust and the process of peer review applied properly, then we can trust, within the constraints of the provisional and qualified nature of all academic understanding, the results of such specialized, localized academic inquiry. I appreciate that this is an important qualification given how much of modern academia has abandoned intellectual rigor for one based on ideological purity, as highlighted by the grievance studies hoaxes of Peter Boghossian, James Lindsay, and Helen Pluckrose, and that the corrosion of academic integrity has been able to occur is part of the reason behind my current concern. It is not practical to become expert in every subject used. At some point, it is necessary to be able to trust the expertise of those presenting evidence and conclusions. To trust the scientific method, in particular, to expose weak or fraudulent claims. It is the method by which the sum of human understanding has been able to advance so far and so quickly in the last few centuries, to the point where we are interacting around the world in real time, using transistor technology that would not have been possible without the theoretical work of quantum physics. But not every instance of intellectual endeavor is accurate. Reality is so complex that in order to reason about it, it is necessary to compartmentalize knowledge and understanding. And when doing so, the information must be constrained within boundaries. That is, it is not possible to access all of human understanding when considering a problem or an issue. It is possible, as happens frequently, to make a convincing argument within the confines of a domain of understanding deemed appropriate that fails when additional information is introduced. Information that has been excluded for some reason. Perhaps it falls outside of the domain of the subject or is deemed verboten by the ideology of those in the field. It is the role of synthesis to expose seemingly robust ideas according to the limited understanding of a field or subfield or subfields, etc. It is, after all, an infinite regress, hypothetically, to knowledge and understanding outside of that domain. In highly esoteric fields, such as philosophy, or providing an intellectual justification for subjects within identitarian fields, such as women's studies, gender studies, race studies, etc., it is possible to create compelling seeming arguments for nonsensical ideas. And this happens because of the amount of scholarship involved, because of the depth of expertise. Yet such reasoning collapses upon immediate exposure to the rest of our understanding. That is, we have these incredible logical fallacies due to the fact that logic has not been applied, although a great deal of reasoning has. There are a great many logical fallacies. Oops. ludicrous. Don't text me while I'm streaming, please. Oops. Oh, damn it. I've got to. No. Oh, you bloody thing. Sorry. Okay. So, yes. If I just get my bloody act together, I do apologise for my total uselessness of I am a boomer after all. Yes, indeed. It can indeed, Paolo. It can indeed. Oh, you fucking useless bloody computer. Oh. Right, sorry. I apologise for my boomerishness. It is now a handy, regular excuse. Okay, so I am going to try and figure out how the bloody hell to do this, because remember, boomer. That one. Okay. No, and click that. And click that. I am screen sharing, but I can't see whether you can see. Oh, there we go. Yes, there we go. There we go. So, yes, this is a list from an educational source. In this case, _UTEP edu, whatever that means. But basically, it's a list of logical fallacies. I don't particularly credit to the robustness of this particular list or the validity of the arguments. But the point is, you can hopefully see that there are a lot of logical fallacies that have been identified. Well over 146. And thus we have this phenomenon of, oops, stop sharing, stupid man. Otherwise you end up in, no, I need that one so I can read it. Okay. And this is the cause of the quote I started with. For anyone without the intellectual expertise of those steeped in the field can see in an instance why the belief is nonsense. But for those immersed in the subject, they can build such convoluted arguments that they can convince themselves of the truth of them, which happens because they cannot see the logical fallacies that exist within their reasoning. And that is because their reasoning is too complicated. For our, that is humanity's, method of understanding the complex is through the application of the scientific method, and that includes the application of formal systems of logic. There are many systems of logic. I have some references, but please take my word for it, there's a lot, because I don't want to destroy you all with my terrible computer skills and screen sharing inabilities. However, they do not all produce valid results, just guesstimates. The types of logic can be separated into three forms. That is according to something I found: deductive, inductive, and abductive. Inductive logic is a very powerful method within mathematics, but it is rarely sufficiently but reality is rarely sufficiently uniform for it to be applied elsewhere. Abductive logic is just bad reasoning. So that leaves systems of deductive logic. The purpose for applying abductive reasoning is to reach conclusions where there is insufficient evidence to use deductive reasoning. The intellectually honest response would instead be to say, I or we don't know. And failure to do so, in my opinion, itself is an indication of intellectual dishonesty or other failures. For example, I found a page on abductive reasoning, and it has the title, Abductive Reasoning, Making Educated Guesses in Research. Now, the problem with educated guesses is that they are distorted by the existing thought processes and biases of those making the guesses. If there is something entirely new to discover, it will, by definition, be missed when using this approach. Thus, by formal systems of logic, I am referring to those which can either confirm truths if based on known truths or disprove hypotheses, though not prove them. And hi, Anatak and Real Raven. I'm afraid you stuck with just me today. Modwayne is taking a well-earned rest from that oppressive Dutch heat. Okay, so it is no surprise that many of the fields which succumb to this problem of fallacious reasoning have explicitly rejected the use of the scientific method and of logic in particular, favouring instead an ideological approach. Yet they still want to be taken seriously. The general populace can never be expected to apply the scientific method. They need to be able to trust those in academia to be working to valid methodology and not from ideological bias. Those of us who have looked at the corrupt parts of academia in any detail at all understand how this has long seemed to be the case. That is the application of valid methodology. And the worst part is that many of us, even when we look, fail to distinguish between work that is entirely useless and other work that may be hard to differentiate from it that remains robust and valid. What we can help the general populace understand is the nature and cause of the corruption, and thus help them understand that not all of academia is to be trusted, with certain parts that ought to be inherently distrusted. The general population cannot be expected to go to papers, follow the citations, or understand when the methodology used is valid or not, particularly in the realm of statistical analysis, nor should they. That is what we have experts, academics, and the academic process for. The general population pay a huge amount for academia through public funding. For this, they expect a system that operates with integrity. It no longer does. The ideologues exploit the difference between perception and reality to peddle falsehoods as truth. What is worse, we are now seeing the same ideological corruption wholesale in our primary and secondary education, higher education being the tertiary level. People are sensing something is wrong, particularly in specific instances, but the corruption of education is being performed behind a general sense of trust that people have in the integrity of the education system. But that integrity is being eroded if it has not already been destroyed. But it is useless to tell people education is no longer even attempting to be objective. They need the tools to be able to figure that out for themselves. This is one purpose of the new ideology I have been proposing. Okay, so a brief look at formal logic versus reasoning. We can all reason and tend to think that we are doing so logically. However, formal logic is something that is defined and is performed according to strict rules and by applying a strict methodology or methodologies, as there are several types of logic. I will discuss these at a later date. And if you're screaming, please God, no, I understand. Reasoning, however, is an informal methodology. It is often done well, but can be done badly. And as a result, we have that long list of logical fallacies. For human reasoning, which often works via heuristics, is not particularly robust. It is an evolved mechanism that needs to be good enough and that favors certain asymmetries, the ones which led to our survival over others. In the scientific age, we have come to learn that what we understand intuitively can be false. For example, the long-held belief in the geocentric nature of the universe and the difficulty science had in overcoming that belief. And a modern analogy to that are the flat earthers. Logic is part of the scientific method and helps derive truths from known axioms and disprove false hypotheses by creating logical inconsistencies. although it cannot verify hypotheses, as lack of disproof may simply be a failure of framing. To the uninitiated, reasoning may seem similar to logic. However, because it lacks intellectual rigor, we end up with those logical fallacies. One of the most persistent ways that reasoning is used incorrectly is through the application of backwards reasoning. That is, we know the conclusion because it is a description of reality, although often that is itself fundamentally flawed. We then seek to reason how the state of affairs we see came to be. The problem here mirrors that of the academic problem of ideas being so stupid that it takes an intellectual to believe them. There are many ways to combine possible factors, perhaps an infinite number of ways, or at least an insanely large number. And people have biases and tend to constrain their thoughts in line with those biases. Thus, the problem is not the reasoning based on what has been included, it is what has been excluded. The scientific solution to this is to subject what we think we have learned to the scientific process, that is formal logic. If we believe we have determined a number of causes and factors in society that caused it to produce the outcomes it did, we then need to take those causes and factors as starting conditions and apply logic to them. The causes and factors can only be deemed accurate and sufficient if they produce and only produce the outcome seen. Otherwise, they are either incorrect, partly or in total, or incomplete. Either way, they will be insufficient to be used as the basis for further reasoning. Yet this is precisely what we see widely within the current strands of ideological thought. As an atheist, I have watched a number of religious attempts to prove God or gods. I do not discriminate in my unbelief. In each case, there is a logical flaw, an act of sophistry that usually occurs early on in the argument presented. Because the argument uses axioms that have not been proven, everything after the act of sophistry is made moot by the act of sophistry. Thus, these arguments invariably fail at the very beginning. Now, the failure of such arguments cannot be used to disprove God. There is no symmetry to this. It is just that I have yet to encounter a proof of God that doesn't resort to sophistry at an early point. I do not seek to argue against the existence of God, just that such arguments are a typical case of taking a known outcome reality, and applying backwards reasoning and considering it to be logic. The problem I face at this point is one of demonstrating my case. I can give examples, but they are just anecdotes. They don't prove a general point. Any specific failure of reasoning can be written off as a one-off. Thus, my next step is to look at systems of formal logic and attempt a brief description of what they are and how they operate. I will then show how the reasoning that is often masqueraded as logic fails to meet the standard of formal logic, after which I will examine the dogma at the basis of feminism and Marxism in turn and apply logic to them to show how they are false. Not much then. So anyway, that's the end of my blathering, but then I've been going for like 15-20 minutes. And I can start paying attention to the chat again and all the lovely people and invite on anyone who wants to tell me about what's wrong with what I've said. Let's see. Paolo, he was here first. Real Raven. An attack. Toxic. And Nick's Matthews Radio. Did Nick's Radio steal Nick's Radio, or is it the other way around? Okay, so would anyone like to come on and tell me what an idiot I am? I will wait for of course, those of you who didn't hear it all, don't know the full extent of my intellectual pretensions. And I'm waiting. Nobody wants to talk. Does anyone in the chat want to say whether they have any views on this, what I said? If they could stay awake long enough to actually listen to it. Ah, so you're like the master, Matthew. Does this understanding improve something? It's part of a path, Sinclair. Part of a path. We're trying to understand what is happening with things like feminism and ways to combat it. So first you need to properly analyze the problem. This is what I am attempting. Yeah. Yes, I did indeed. Alicia is quite the handy woman. Quite the handy woman indeed. Dyslexic atheist who denied dog's existence. Ruined by your shitty spacebar there, ludicrous. You need a new laptop. Okay, so to answer Sinclair's question, does this understanding improve something? Okay. As I had said before I started, I don't know if he was here, one of the problems we have is a sloppiness with language. Oh, it's in the under description thing. Yeah, but your spacebar is part of your laptop, ludicrous. Yes, language is important, and we misapply important terms which have meaning all the time. So, for instance, all those feminist theories that are not even conjectures but failed hypotheses. Critical theory, another one. No, not a theory, it's a load of bollocks. Okay. Then you have people will say, oh, their logic was bad. No, if you do logic properly, it works. If it's bad, it's not logic, it's reasoning. And thus, one of the things is to understand this distinction, use words correctly, and get people to use logic when they need to prove something and not reasoning, which is subject to that very long list of 149 logical fallacies. Okay, does that answer the question? That's I know it's all rather, but yes. The problem is there's a big scheme of mine in my brain, and it's very hard to explain little bits of it that make sense because language is linear, and so you have to start somewhere. But the understanding is total, or lack of understanding, or realizing it's all bollocks, which is very possibly true. Whether you agree with it is another matter, and that is fair enough. Okay, well, if no one wants to come on and harangue me or argue the toss, then I'm guessing we'll just have to end, which I'm sure will be a great relief to everybody. It's just that with this slot generally being used and Modwayne feeling a little victimized by the humidity and heat in his native land, I thought it was too good an opportunity to bore you all to pass up. Any last takers? Nope. Okay, then I think Modwayne, if you could do the honours. I think we are done.
Well, okay. If no one else wants to take part of the whole, let's talk about something. I'm not.
Or we can laugh at Cameroonian female football players as a light relief.
That's possible. Actually, that was part of the idea I had for a topic, but I rescinded because I'm just too tired.
However, it takes almost zero intellectual energy to make fun of female Cameroon football players.
Oh, well, show us that. Come on.
Oh, I thought you'd got the link.
No, I haven't. I asked you to, but you didn't send it.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood what you wrote. I thought you said, "Oh no, I've now got a great link," and yeah, sorry, my boomerisms never abate.
Who called me? On a site, not John.
Yeah, sorry. FIFA has now opened disciplinary proceedings against Cameroon. Follow the shenanigans.
Well, screen share.
I'm just trying to find the. For those of you who don't know, especially those the game of football, we call football, and for some strange reason, all various kinds of foreigner, like Australians and Americans, call soccer, which is ironically a British term, but the wrong sort of British, namely posh ones. The working people call it football or footy, which is also an abbreviation the Australians use for a different type of football. Well, it is Australian rules football, so you can't blame them. Anyway, there was a football match in the Football World Cup for the women that took place very recently. England beat Cameroon. Now, in the game of football, there are various tight decisions involved in goals. And they use a new system called VAR, Video Assistant Referee, to make sure they get the decision right. And 2 such decisions were made, both of which went against Cameroon. The Cameroon women, in a fit of complete sportswomanship, threw a fit, refused to resume the game and started crying. Now, there are some people who would say that this indicates a fundamental problem with that. Not all, but some women can have when compared to their equivalent males. But that this happened in the last 32 of the World Cup is not a good thing for women's football.
Your sound is a little bit muffled, John.
Yes, I don't know why. I've got Windows, and Windows has drivers that have a will of their own, it seems. Otherwise known as shit programming. You can afford a stick. Well, just go down the woods. And sorry, Sinclair, yes, I will critique your ideas if you like. You mad fool. Oh dear. Okay, so yes, that was the Women's World Cup. But the point being behind all this, that the women are very upset that the women's footballers earn a lot less than the men's footballers because they know absolutely nothing about economics. Because
yeah, that's funny because the American team won 13-0 to can't even remember who they played, and they're like, well, it's unfair because look at these monster outcomes, whilst the women get paid far less than the men. And I'm like, yeah, but the best female team in the world still gets beaten by an average 15-year-old boy team.
Yeah, but it's not just that, though. I mean, just simple economics, right? When the Men's World Cup is on, you'll get 2 to 3 billion people watching it. That is a shitload of television revenue. When the Women's World Cup is on, you might get a few 100 million. Now, that still sounds a lot, but compared to 2 or 3 billion, you can see the order of magnitude. And it's that order of magnitude which determines how much money the players get.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And it's like, you know, the top leagues in men's club football.
Yeah.
England, Spain,
yeah.
Germany have these huge international audiences, which enable, again, huge television deals to be signed.
Yeah.
And the games themselves are played in front of 50, 60, 70,000 people every week. They have all the commercial revenue of shirt sales and so forth. And the women's team will play in front of 3,000 people if they're lucky.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why they don't get the same money. Really?
And it's not so much that they wonder why they don't get the same money, but they actually think, don't get me wrong, one of my colleagues used to be a player in the Dutch national team for footy. And she's a goalkeeper, and she is good. I'm not going to pretend she's not. I mean, she came at a higher level than I came, for example. But yeah, that's comparing apples to oranges. And even though she's good, and she's training, she's a goalkeeper trainer as well. She's training boys, mostly boys, obviously. And she easily recognized, like, okay, the Dutch team at the moment, the female Dutch team at this point in time is really good. I mean, it's mostly the same team as that won the World Championship not too long ago. It's really good. And the first thing she will tell you is that, yeah, but don't bother trying to compare them to a boys' team. Not even a Dutch men's team, a boys' team. And there are absolutely athletes out there that recognize that, yeah, you know what, I might be the best female athlete in my sport in the world, but I recognize the difference between me and an average bloke.
Yeah, you are far superior.
But then there are women that are like, no. I mean, the whole Serena Williams thing, not too long ago. Well,
don't get me started on tennis. 3 sets. I'm just saying, it's only 3 sets for the women.
Yeah, but I mean, she was so sure that she was equally as good. She started to believe the bullshit people talk. Oh no, she's the best woman ever, and oh, she could even easily beat any man. So there was a man that actually said, okay, you know what? I'll play you.
Drunk, with one hand tied behind his back.
Well, not like that. Not like that. He did play relatively serious, but he was ranked
300.
Yeah, between 300 and 700, because he played her twice, and both times he defeated her. But the second time he was ranked lower, I think. Can't remember. But yeah, I mean, he was like ranked 300 in the world, and to say that she was without a chance is to well, how do you say that? To say she was without a chance is not really.
Yeah, it's optimistic. It's doing it.
It sounds nice to say she was without a chance. She might as well not have been there. I mean, it's not that she didn't get any ball back, but and the only time that a man actually lost from a high level tennis player was I'm really
Billie Jean King played Bobby Briggs way back in the 70s, and he
was absolutely wasted, and he was
he was retired, and
and okay, she won, but he didn't really play her. I mean, it was just a way to get into the spotlight for him.
Well, yeah. It wasn't a competitive match, so it's when things aren't competitive, you have to put your credulity to one side a little bit.
Well, and there is this different argument, and this is a point that what's his name, the tennis player, King, I think. No, I can't remember. You just
Billie Jean King.
Yeah, no, not Billie Jean was the woman, the man. I forgot his name.
Sorry?
I forgot the name of the man who played.
Bobby Briggs.
Yeah, Bobby Briggs. He made a point, and there are people who say, well, that's a fair point, and there are also people who say, well, he's only saying that because he lost. But he basically made the point that, well, this match could have gone two ways. I could have won.
And everyone would have gone there.
And if I would have won, everyone was like, either, well, yeah, obviously a win. But then there are people like, what a bastard. Can't you even give women a chance?
Oh, whoa. I'm assuming we're talking about two Americans. In America, there's only first place. What bollocks?
Yeah, but I mean, that's simply one of the things that he was talking about. Was like, well, if I would have beaten her, then everyone was either going to say, well, yeah, logical, but then there will also be critics out there who would say something like, why did you do this to her? But now that I lost
the contest.
Yeah, but now that I lost, people are using this to say that she was better than me, and you know what? I'm old. I don't care.
Yeah. No, to be honest, he should never have accepted, because it's he's in a lose-lose situation. I mean, he's specified that.
Yeah, that's basically it.
But yeah, no, and it's because people, going back to my talk, people cannot apply logic.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so Serena Williams dominates women's tennis more than any particular man dominates men's tennis, for one reason, that we have three exceptional tennis players all at the same time. Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Djokovic.
Yeah.
Okay. And each of them is, on their own, is hitting records that had never been set before, and they're all doing it at the same time as each other. However, Serena Williams is on her own. And so people say, oh, she's got all these titles, more titles than any man's got, so she must be better. No, it doesn't work like that. You're only as good as the opposition you face.
Yeah.
So if you are better than everyone else, yes, you are better than everyone else. But you can't then take that and compare it to a completely different set of people who don't intersect with you and say, oh, but you're better than them too. It just doesn't work like that.
I'm going to respond some about, do female porn start
much more
than male ones? Dude, that's not even a contest.
Male heterosexual men who want to earn money as porn stars go into gay porn.
Yeah, just so they can make money.
And models too. I mentioned models earlier, Paola. And yet, oddly, feminists never mention those wage gaps.
Oh, but that's because feminists don't want them to exist, because it's porn.
No. It's because it only matters when there's an advantage to men. Advantage to men, sexism. Advantage to women, because women are better.
I mean, let's be honest. Female porn stars are only doing the job so that they can make men feel happy about watching something. Therefore, patriarchy. Never mind the fact that
I
these
mean,
women
even the
make a lot of
lesbian
money.
porn's for lesbians.
Ah, but according to feminists, men watch that. Yeah, you can't win with them, can you? It's a catch-22, and it's kind of funny because it's kind of funny because if we look at the sports thing in America, there are now so many stories going on because of the whole gender acceptance bullshit. There are men that are out competing women in women fields because they identify as women.
To answer Nick, Brian Martinez of Honey Badger Radio interviewed this man who he was kind of odd because he's now married with the intent of having children, but he identified as like non-binary, and he did gay porn. And these are his stories from within gay porn.
Uh-huh.
And he was saying, you know, that basically the men who could act, the straight men who could act as if they were into it were okay, not the ones who couldn't. But yes, it's a few months ago, but BC.
BBC.
Sorry, I missed what you were talking about there.
Ludicrous.
Sorry, I missed the message before.
But yeah, so go on.
No, I'm just saying. Literally, everything I know about gay porn comes from that one interview because I honestly have zero interest in it. Not something that bothers me in the slightest. It's like I'm perfectly happy to it exists somewhere else. Like, fine. But I'll see if I can find that interview on Honey Badger Radio. The trouble is when you don't know the person's name, it tends to be a bit of a scrolling exercise. Yes, I'm unapologetic. Never apologize. Didn't you watch V's recent video? Never apologize.
But we started to talk about the Cameroonian England match, right?
You regenerate. What, like Doctor Who? St. Clair says you regenerate.
No, not really. I need to pee, but.
Well, I'm not sure which of us he was referring to, but one of us regenerates apparently.
Ah, right. Then
like
I don't.
Doctor Who.
You know what? I'll be right back. I'm going to.
Oh, come on! What is it? BA for Badger. Badger
right
live streams.
And I'll be right back. And then when I come back, we can maybe watch at the Cameroon England thingy.
How odd! For some strange reason, it is not showing in my subscriptions. Here we go. Videos. Oh, dear, it was months ago. God, how do you find it? An interview, a fireside chat. It will have been Honey Badger. Honey, learn to type. Badger fireside chat. Oh, and then they don't come in order. Oh dear. Oh, I missed that one. That's a shame. Sorry, you'll have to excuse me. I can't talk and scroll through this long list very well. Oh, there's some awful people in there.
I'm back.
Good, good. You can feel the dead air. That's caused by me trying to scroll through and find this particular young man who was into the male porn.
Okay, well, in that case, I'm going to do something because we started about this, so may as well share.
Yeah. You can.
Cameroon in England thingy.
Yeah. For the lols.
For the lol cows. I haven't seen it myself. It's just John mentioned it, so. Hi there, Just.
It being women's football, I had no interest in it, but I do monitor the sports on the BBC, and so I saw about it.
Okay, let's see where this goes.
Germany and Norway are already through to the quarterfinals of the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup. Will it be England or Cameroon to join them in the last 8 here in France? Ellen White hits that ball in play, and it'll just be tidied at the back. It is a back pass, though, from a Jange, gathered by Gondom. England just waiting, hoping to tempt them.
Okay, wait. For those of you who don't know what just happened, you're not supposed to play the ball back to the goalkeeper in a situation like that, which this was. So that's why England now gets a free kick on the edge of the goalies. That's
the penalty area. It's called.
No. The penalty area is this. This is the penalty area. This.
Sorry, I can't see because.
You can't see my mouse.
No, I couldn't see because I was scrolling through that list, which was over the top of the window containing this.
But I mean, this is. Let me.
You could. They can't see it, Modwayne. They can't see it.
No. What they just saw. I mean, this is what they just saw.
No, they can't see it.
It's not showing it.
We can only see John's screen. Says
okay, let's try again then. Bloody stupid me. Okay, I'm going to start from here again.
Will it be England or Cameroon to join them in the last 8 here in France? Ellen White hits that ball in play, and it'll just be tidied at the back.
Oh, okay, that's harsh. Can I just say that's harsh? I think it should never have been a free kick.
No, it is, because she's playing the ball back to the goalkeeper.
It depends what part of it plays off and whether it's an intentional pass or just bounced off her.
Not considering this location. In this location, because they were that close together, it is an intentional pass because there's no one else there. So what she could have done is take it and put it at her feet, try to walk away, and then the goalkeeper picks the ball up, or she could kick it off. But what she did is she let the ball roll back to the goalkeeper. This is something that you don't see at D-level kids. Because everyone knows, no, don't. So they get a free kick.
A back pass, though.
It is a back pass. Yes, it is.
Gathered by Gondom. England just waiting, hoping to tempt the.
So yeah, that's an amazing place.
1-0.
Yeah, it's not that hard to score like that.
Executed.
The goalkeeper still had the hand to it, so that's good.
Lucy Bronze, but it'll flick through to Ellen White.
No, I'm not quite sure if that was offside, to be honest. I think.
Yeah, this is refers to the VAR decision.
There is an offside leading up to the goal. Well, there's the line. That looks onside.
No, it's not offside.
And it is
bloody hell.
And Ellen White gets goal number 4 for her.
Yeah, indeed, Paolo. It was the first one was totally a pass because she does protect the ball so that the goalkeeper can get it.
And a chance here.
I was trying to be generous.
And Shu arriving! What a finish!
Oh, that's a beautiful goal as well.
Ah, wait. Wait.
Yeah, well, is there a possible offside? The ball is. Oh, wait a sec. I'm going to go back. Stop. Oh, come back a little bit.
Oh, they'll repeat it anyway.
Okay, well, I'm not quite sure. Because here the ball is going, and it's going in this direction. Look who's here. Now that the ball doesn't come here and stops here doesn't matter. This person is still offside.
No, it doesn't. No, that doesn't matter. It's the rules are so bizarre these days. It's the trailing foot of the player at the far end is deemed to be behind, and that's why there's a blue line and a red line. So the blue line is the back of the England player, and the red line is the back of the Cameroonian player. And because the red line is towards the goal, that counts as offside.
Yeah. Well, I would take this one as well, to be honest, because that's part of the rule as well. But let's continue.
And it's been overturned. Greenwood. Oh, little short, and a chance for the substitute to pull a goal back with a first touch. Denied though by Bardsley. Duggan with the corner, and arriving brilliantly with the finish. England get a third goal. It's Alex Greenwood. What a corner that was. Gondon beaten for a third time. England progress into the quarterfinals after a 3-goal victory.
Ah, too bad. You said that would be crying.
No, there was. They've cut all that bit out. They've only shown the sporty bit, not the unsporty bit.
Let's stop this. Did I stop it? I should have. Oh, come on, stupid program. Anyway, now what you saw, the first one, the first free kick that the English got in this one, that was incredibly stupid. That the Cameroonian team was actually not pleased with that, I can understand, but oh my god, that was so stupid. The referee was absolutely right on that one. That's a good call. Don't you agree with me, John?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I'll agree.
You could argue whether it was or wasn't a pass back to the goalkeeper, but the fact that she made her body big to prevent anyone to get past her, kind of
yeah,
shows it was.
I'll give you that. Yes, okay.
And I mean, the offsides were offside. I mean, we could argue about it, but they were offside. So the fact that they even make a point out of it, that they would say, "Oh, but this is unfair." No, these are the rules. Everyone plays with these rules.
There have been far worse injustices, even were they injustices. In the 2000 and was it 10? The South Africa World Cup.
Yeah.
England scored a goal against Germany. It was 3 feet over the line.
So we didn't have we didn't have the right back
it
then.
is what led to goal line technology.
Yeah.
It was the actual incidents, because it
was very clear. It was a goal. It was
clear to everybody in the stadium, except the linesman and the referee, and so
even
they didn't give it.
And even if you look back in how do you call it, in replays, you can actually see the ball. I think it went via the top bar. And
it was a clear goal. This is the point.
Yeah. It was top bar, and it went down to the behind the goal line, and it bounced back forward, so it bounced back out of the goal. But it had touched ground behind the line, so it was a goal already. That the ball bounced out.
Well, the goal rule is exactly the same as American football. You just have to break. You just have to be over the line. You have to. Yeah. It doesn't have to touch anything.
No,
but it just has to be physically beyond the line. And so the point being is that was a significant disallowal that could have made a major difference in that particular game.
Oh, definitely. And the only reason it's because it only became a content issue was because the ball bounced out of the goal. So I mean, top bar, ground, and then bounced back out. But the fact that it bounced out didn't mean anything. But because of that, the referee claims he didn't really see, which is possible.
No, it was because it was a long way away. Basically, what happened was the Germans were attacking, so everyone was in the England half. Frank Lampard managed to do a shot from half the length of the pitch and scored. But the officials, the referee and linesman, were too far away to see it.
Yeah, which is understandable. I'm not going to say that they did it on purpose, but if you look at the replays for us, the people at home, we could easily see it was a goal.
The thing is, they have giant screens in the stadium. So everybody saw it, but the referee is not allowed to use what he sees on the big screen to make his decision.
Well, not back at that day. Now they're going to.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. And this is why they changed the rules, because it was an obviously incorrect decision that would have easily been fixed. And at this point, Americans should be pissing themselves laughing because their sports have had these sort of things for a long time.
Well, you even have at field hockey, you have this technology. And then football is one of the few places where we don't use the technology we actually have. Because it's fairer.
Well, the fundamental problem with football is the concept is you cannot apply systems inconsistently. So if you cannot do it at the local park, you shouldn't do it at a national stadium. The difference being the vast sums of money that depend upon the decisions in the stadium compared to the local park. And that's why they're finally changing their minds.
Yeah, about time. But it's kind of funny because when people start talking about, and I don't like watching female football. It's unfair of me, I know, but it's
not unfair. It's like, do you go down the local park and watch the kids play? If the answer is no, then that is no different to not wanting to watch the women.
And it is a little bit difficult because I do enjoy watching the Dutch team play from time to time, but I can't watch a full match of them. I mean, they have some good actions. They really do. In all fairness, I know you're not going to like this, but I do think the Dutch team is by far better than the English female team.
I don't care. If it's true, it's true. And if it's not, then you're just deluded. So either way.
Well, it is true. So there is that. But I can't I can watch a bad man team play a full match against an equally opponent, because there is still more action in it than in a good female football match. And the Dutch players, I mean, yes, they have very good action from time to time. But there are people who will say football is boring as it is. And then the female...
But it can be, and it can be very good. The problem with football is you don't know what you're going to get.
Mm.
But no, I mean... the problem is a numbers problem. The number of men or boys around the world and the amount of effort those boys put in to becoming the best players far outstrips the pool available for women. So it's just a numbers game. If you have a much bigger pool, you're going to get a bigger number of exceptional talents. Mm. And because they put in so much more work to develop their talents, because they have to get to the very top, those at the top are better. And it's the same with used to happen in American basketball, when the kids in the neighborhood would put in hours and hours and hours every single day on their court to become good enough to play in the NBL. And so you get better players. This is what happens when you practice and practice and practice and hone your skills. You know, it's not rocket science.
No, it's kind of funny, and then there's this whole transgender bullshit going on with female games and female sports as well. It's almost as if feminism is doing everything they can to diminish women. Well, either by stupid things like saying, "Oh no, we're just as good as men, therefore we need to have the same pay," while obviously proving that they're not. And then when there's a man who's like, "Oh, you know what? Today I'm going to be a woman, and today I'm going to play as a woman," and then feminists are like, "Yeah, no, that's perfectly all right.
Yeah, but let's be fair. Sport has hardly been a domain of feminist interest.
Yeah, but there are women who are interested in sports.
I know, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
I
I
know
said
you
it's
didn't
not
say
an
that.
interest of feminism.
But feminists are actually destroying this for women.
Yeah, because feminism is counter and destroys everything it comes into contact with. This is a given, yes. Sorry, I know that's rather a terminating statement, but it does actually, everything ever said about feminism boils down to this.
Yeah. On the other hand, perhaps feminism works to diminish women because diminished women is the business of feminism. Well, yeah. And it's feminism that diminishes women, even though they like to claim it's the patriarchy. No matter that the patriarchy in itself cannot be proven, which is weird, but that's me.
Well, I'm just stealing this from somebody else, but the only goal of feminism is to serve feminism.
Yeah.
There's no, everything else is just smokescreen.
Yeah. Not in a nice way. Oh, sorry, yawn. See, there it is. I'm too tired.
That's all right.
Yeah.
We've dragged it on well over the hour. We have fulfilled our self-professed mandate to keep people off the street for an hour and keep society that little bit safer.
This stream will probably be copyright or what's it called?
Oh, it's the BBC. Damn it, I paid for that. Allegedly. Well, I do pay my license, and occasionally I buy things which have tax on them and therefore pay tax.
Yeah. There is that. Anywho. Feminism is to serve the feminists. Well, that's the whole thing with nearly all authoritarian movements. They don't care about the individual.
Well, and we have to go back to the start of feminism. Who were the feminists? What did they want? And why did they want it? It was a bunch of bored, entitled, wealthy women who were all sulking because they didn't have enough to do and couldn't do what the men were doing at that time, which is become scientists.
That's not true, though, because there were women scientists.
No. I'm talking about the 18th century, when science was dominated by wealthy gentlemen of leisure who could both afford the time and the expense of being scientists.
Yeah, fair enough. But I mean, that science in itself has always been the domain of men, mostly the domain of men. I'm not going to contest. But the idea that women weren't...
No, I didn't say they were excluded. I said these women were bored, and instead of following the men at that time in exerting themselves in something like science, they got together and whinged. Yeah.
And instead of saying, okay, I can do this too, they basically said, you're not allowed to do this. Say what now?
No. You see, again, this is a lie, because at that time, there was no science education. University didn't include sciences because it hadn't been invented yet.
True.
That was the whole point of these gentlemen scientists, is that they were making the shit up as they went along.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite example is, which one was it? Was it Michael Faraday, who was from too humble a background to go to a university, and so he just did it all himself, and now he's in the history books. The point being is, and women did do that. Marie Curie, anybody? Although that was 100 and odd years later. But the point being is, rather than just exert themselves positively, they sat around with each other bemoaning their situation, and that, I think, we can pretty much sum up as feminism.
Yeah, well, it's not just feminism, but yeah.
No, I didn't say it was just feminism. Remember how I started talking about logic? You got supposed to apply logic to this.
There's no reason for that.
No, sorry. How could I? How could I?
And indeed, as Paulo said, add intersectionality to the mix, and feminism are complaining that there is unfairness in sports because there are winners and losers. And in all fairness, I really think this is the reason why in America, those idiots that call themselves educators and basically let children play games when there won't be any winners because, well, let's not keep track of scores. It's just not nice for them to know that they're 2-0 behind or stuff like that. I can't believe that there are actual pedagogues out there that believe that it's okay for a kid to play a game where winning or losing isn't part of the game.
Well, as I quipped somewhere or other recently, they're not institutions of higher learning anymore. They're institutions of higher ignorance.
Yeah. It's weird though. It's really is. Anywho.
I still can't find that bloody interview.
Found it. Well, maybe for next time.
I am utterly useless at these things. It's like, oh, I have a clear idea in my mind when it was, and no, it wasn't.
I am going to call it quits, though. I'd like to thank you all for showing up and taking part of this. Please re-listen to what John had to say about the whole logic.
And my extreme thanks to Modwayne for his indulgence of my refusal to let the poor man have a rest.
Well, there is that. Oh, sorry.
As you can hear, you can audibly hear, this is what I'm subjecting him to, and yet he has the good grace to humour me, and I think that is commendable.
Well, I'm not going to go now. I'm going to call it quits. I thought it was on John's. Well, sleep well, people, and I hope to see you all next time. And this is where I'm going to click on the button to say stop.